most notably the #1 domestic problem in America by far is the epidemic of fatherlessness. 40% of all American kids now enter the world without a father in the home married to the mother. 25% of black kids in 1965, now 70%. 25% of white kids now enter the world without a father in the home married to the mother, and the stats are clear. If you're raised without a father, you're 5 times more likely to be poor and commit crime, 9 times more likely to drop out of school, and 20 times more likely to end up in jail. Now, what's happened? In the mid-'60s, a Democrat, Lyndon Johnson, launched the so-called war on poverty, and since then, we've incentivized women to marry the government and incentivized men to abandon their financial and moral responsibility, and nobody's talking about it.
So, the neighborhood you grew up in, the state you grew up in, you grew up with your dad at home. We've talked about your dad. It sounds like an amazing guy. But that wasn't weird, was it?
It was unusual when I was growing up for a mother and a father not to be in the home. Now it is unusual for a mother and the father in the inner city to be in the home. And that's the big difference. My father never knew his biological father. My last name, Elder, is the name of some man who was in his life the longest, maybe 3-4 years. I'm not even sure that Elder formally adopted my dad, but my dad began using his name. His mother could neither read nor write. She was irresponsible, lived off a series of boyfriends. My dad, at the age of 13, comes home and starts quarreling with his mom's then boyfriend. Elder was long gone. And the mother sided with the boyfriend and threw my father out of the house, never to return. Athens, Georgia, Jim Crow South at the beginning of the Great Depression. And my father picked up trash, cleaned up barns, did whatever he could, became a Pullman porter on the trains. They were the largest private employer of blacks in those days. And this little black boy from Athens, Georgia, traveled all over the country, Tucker, and came to this state called California, the city called Los Angeles, and my dad was blown away. You could walk through the front door of a restaurant, sit down and get served. So he made a mental note, maybe someday he'll relocate to California. My dad always had packages of crackers and tin cans of tuna because you never knew in the South if you'd be able to get a meal. Pearl Harbor, my dad joined the Marines. I asked him why. Are there any Marines here? There are any Marines here? Hoorah. You know what I'm going to say. I asked my dad why he joined the Marines. He said 2 reasons. They go where the action is, and I love the uniforms.
Good reason.
So my dad was stationed on the island of Guam. He was in charge of cooking for the colored soldiers because the military was segregated in those days. My dad can look at a cake and tell you what's in it. So the war is over. He goes back to Chattanooga, Tennessee, where he met and married my mom to get him a job as a short order cook. He goes to 3 or 4 restaurants and he's told, we don't hire niggers. Goes to an unemployment office. The lady says, you went through the wrong door. My dad goes to the hall and sees colored only, goes through that door to the very same lady who sent him out. My dad came home to my mom and said, this is BS. I'm going to LA where I was before the war, get me a job as a cook. So he comes out to LA, he walks around, and he's told, you don't have any references. My dad said, I need references to make ham and eggs. Goes to the unemployment office, this time just 1 door. Nothing's available. He says, what time do you open? She says, 9 o'clock. What time do you close? She said, 5. My dad said, I'll be sitting in that chair till you find something. Sat in the chair for a whole day, came back the next day, sat there until lunch. She called him up. She said, I have a job for you. I don't know whether you're going to want it. My dad said, of course I'm going to want it. I'm starting a family. What is it? It's a job cleaning toilets and Nabisco brand bread. My dad did that for 10 years, took a second full-time job at another bread company, cleaning toilets, cooked for a family on the weekend because they wanted my mom to be a stay-at-home mom, went to night school to get his GED. After getting his GED, went to night school to learn how to operate a restaurant. The man never slept. Which is why he was so grouchy all the time. And my dad started a little cafe, 47 years old, ran it until his mid-80s. When my dad retired, he owned that building, he owned the property next to it, plus the house that's still in our family right now. He retired with a net worth of above $1 million. So I tell you that story, Tucker, to say that being raised by a single mom is not a death sentence. You're still responsible. Life is still all about choices. My dad was a lifelong Republican. My mom was a lifelong Democrat. You should have been in the house. My dad said, Democrats want to give you something for nothing. When you try and get something for nothing, you almost always end up getting nothing for something. And my dad would say this, hard work wins. You get out of life what you put into it. You cannot control the outcome, Larry, but you are 100% in control of the effort. And before you bitch, moan, or whine about what somebody did to you or said to you, go to the mirror, look at it, and ask yourself, what could I have done to change the outcome? And finally, he said, no matter how hard you work, how good you are, sooner or later, bad things are going to happen. How you deal with those bad things will tell your mother and me if we raised a man.